Hello there, I'm Brittany, and this is a 20-minute compilation video of me drawing. I'm using a text-to-speech app because anytime I try to record a narration, I sound nervous because I'm nervous, and it makes the video difficult to watch. I'm a 32-year-old American woman, but I might choose a man's voice as narrator. I'm not sure yet. I'm just going to pick whatever I find to be the most relaxing. Hopefully you actually do find this video to be relaxing though. I recently reached 100 subscribers and wanted to make a different kind of video as a thank you. I'm so grateful for you all subscribing and interacting. I didn't expect to have this many people watching that quickly. It's been a very pleasant surprise. This is just the first 6 weeks of clips from my drawing vlog. There's no new footage or anything. Having watched part of this back, I feel like it gives a better idea of how drawings come about than the weekly version does though. The way I've been filming and editing is just based on what I drew that day. I think I'll continue doing that for the rest of the year, and if I were to continue next year, the videos would probably focus on the 1 or 2 drawings that I finish, rather than the 5 to 7 I work on randomly in a week. I'm open to suggestions, of course. I just haven't gotten much feedback on the vlogs yet. I started working remotely full-time last year, so recently I've been able to draw more with the added free time. It's been very nice, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to spend more time and energy doing something that I love. I feel like the 2 hours of free time I've gotten back per workday has helped me kind of delve deeper into whatever I'm searching for with these. I try to spend about 90 minutes before work drawing, which seems excessive, but it is a nice way to ease into the day. Then I'll get ready for work, start work, and draw for another hour during the break. After work is kind of up in the air. Sometimes I'm productive, sometimes I'm not. I would say I probably draw for at least an hour, but I don't keep track of what a regular afternoon looks like. Like today, I just took a break from drawing for 2 hours, but I've been off for almost 5 and didn't do much else other than that. How productive I am also depends on what I'm working on. I'm honestly not always excited by each new drawing. I do try to be, but every now and then I'll get discouraged once I'm part of the way through it. Which isn't a bad thing, I don't think. I prefer to finish drawings I don't like instead of throwing them away, because I'll usually still get something out of them. Even if I legitimately do not like what I made, I can still use some piece of it in a later drawing, like the composition or the texture. I started making these abstract drawings in 2019. Initially, it was just something I did for fun, while I thought of other projects and drawings to work on, and it snowballed into this just being the only thing I do, which I don't mind. It's just not something I expected or planned. I make these purely because I enjoy it. They are by no means a form of stress relief, because my life is rarely stressful. If I am in a mood, it can be nice to use them to try to focus on something else, but ultimately I try to avoid doing that because I don't want to associate that drawing with whatever happened. I'm also not good at being productive when I feel bad anyway, so that makes it even rarer for me to draw through whatever's going on. I guess what I enjoy most about them is that I don't know how they'll look once they're finished. I don't start them with a set idea in place, so working on them feels like a form of play. Even for things that are basically repeats of other drawings, there are variations that affect the overall energy of the piece. That's how I feel anyway. Like I know these are by no means masterpieces, but I do think they are effective in evoking a certain feeling. Not that I know what to call that feeling, though. The way they're made makes it feel more like I'm piecing a puzzle together. Like I have this element that I want, and that one, and it's just a matter of figuring out the best way to combine them and make it look complete. These also usually take a few weeks to make. I don't know if it helps to always have them around me when I'm working, but I feel like it does. At the very least, they give me motivation to finish whatever I'm working on, so I can work on them next. They are all untitled. I'm not opposed to titling work, it's just that these are fairly small, and I feel like attaching words to them in any kind of way diminishes whatever power they have on their own, if that even makes sense. I'm not sure if you can tell from this narration, but I am not a strong writer anyway, so it's probably for the best. I wouldn't say this is a meditative practice either, because 99% of the time I'm watching or listening to something. I basically binge-watch TV shows constantly while I work on these. I want to say I mostly watch dramas, like I've rewatched The Sopranos a lot, but I get the most enjoyment out of watching things that are art-related. They're usually very inspiring, and at the very least it's interesting to see what gives other people the drive to make things. Any documentaries or interviews with Toni Morrison are a big favourite. She clearly loved writing, which already comes through in her work, but seeing her talk about it makes the love even more apparent. I also like the documentary on Philip Guston, A Life Lived. Their passion is really infectious. I don't know if watching these actually makes me make better work, but it at least makes me want to keep going. The Andy Warhol Diaries on Netflix was also very interesting. I only had a broad idea of him before watching it, but it definitely made his work more intense for me afterwards. Like a fair amount of his work documents queer culture that we might not have had access to otherwise, but on the other hand that comes from exploiting the people who were willing to pose and act for him. And how he lived his life in general isn't exactly normal. I can't remember if this particular documentary goes into him being sick as a child, but I watched a couple after this, and it sounds like he was incredibly isolated for a solid amount of time because of it. It seems like that's what made him so detached from other people, and with his diaries being documented in this way, you get more insight into his struggles with that. I also obviously love Yayoi Kusama. Watching Infinity is a bit heartbreaking though. It's nice that she's living out the rest of her life with the amount of success she deserves, but it took her a long time to get to that point. I didn't realize that other artists stole from her like that, which makes it clear why it was so difficult for her to stay stable in the States, because it's not like it happened once, and because the people who stole from her were white males, whereas she's an Asian woman, made it all the more difficult because it was much easier for them to get recognition for their work than it was for her, especially during that time period. I try not to be too heavily influenced by her, but I know that I am regardless. Her work is incredibly powerful, and her life story is amazing. By all means, it would be understandable if she gave up at so many different points. It's like she made herself a perfect vessel for art, and with that she's able to express a deep love of life with her work. Hopefully she is much happier now. Obviously she at least enjoys being able to work, and she can do that more consistently with the lifestyle she currently has. I know she lives in a hospital in Japan, but that wasn't portrayed as a bad thing. I can see how that would be better for her, because she has people checking on her and helping her out more regularly. She had a difficult upbringing, and I could see how reverting back to a more structured routine and schedule where you're forced to be less isolated could be healing. It's a way to make up for the things you didn't have. That's basically the majority of what's buzzing around my head. I'm constantly thinking about art. Right now, AI voices are buzzing in my head though. I finally found a great site to use. It's 11 Labs, and I tested out part of this document, and I'm pretty delighted. Hopefully by now you are drifting off to sleep so you can't hear me slash him ramble about AI voices. In that case, I wish you a good night and sweet dreams and all of that. Nothing has made me feel older than trying to figure out the IBM Watson text-to-speech thing, and I still don't know how to use it. You have to use the command prompt and curl, and it really is beyond me. Like I followed the tutorial, but it just would not work. With 11 Labs, it's all just through the site. Copy and paste your text and boom, they'll generate a voice and let you download an MP3 file of it. Super easy and it's free. I did subscribe just so I can play around with it more. There's a 10,000 word limit which I don't think this video will hit, but it is nice to have more room to experiment. Also, it was just $1 for this first month. And depending on how I feel about this video, I might do another compilation of the next 6 weeks, so that would help. It lets you adjust the voice as well. This seemed to be the most relaxing combination, at least to me anyway. Like by now you should be asleep, right? I usually do try to search for more calming videos at night, so I cannot necessarily bore myself, but hit whatever level of relaxation I need to hit to start feeling sleepy. I also only watch stuff while I draw, and since the act of drawing is super repetitive, that helps a lot too. For YouTubers, Peter Draws videos are very nice and chill. I also like this guy who reviews fountain pens and then makes a drawing with them. Afterwards, Eugen Borken. His videos are also very calm and factual. Teeth Rot is cool too, but he only has a few videos up. I would watch more, but I have a difficult time finding other artists who talk while they draw. I know storytime videos are big, but I'd prefer not to listen to drama, and that's like the only thing YouTube suggests. And for some reason, how-to videos are not relaxing. I guess I just don't like being told what to do, even when I'm not going to do it. If you listened this far and you have recommendations, please feel free to share them. It's definitely appreciated. All I can think about is this AI voice though. Like honestly, this is magic. I found exactly what I wanted after I had resigned myself to thinking the best voices I could find cheaply would be obviously robotic. Maybe you disagree, but this guy sounds realistic enough to me. There are a few things that don't come out very well, but for the most part he reads at a good pace and sounds great. I love living in the future. For the most part, I consider myself very lucky to be born during this time period. I mean, times are hard for everyone for sure, but since this is meant to be like a relaxing thing, we can pretend like they're not. It is weird having the internet blow up to what it is now, as well as having smartphones be a part of daily life. I don't know if that's for the best, but I'm not going to lie. I do enjoy being entertained all waking hours of the day. It's also a lot easier to build an audience for my work. I have about 2,000 followers on Instagram, and there is no way I'd be able to get that many people interested in what I'm doing in real life. I also sell drawings to an antique shop that's based in New York, while I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, which is still amazing to me. I didn't make them with the intent to sell them. I didn't think people would be that interested in them. I just had to make them. I don't know why, it's just this massive compulsion that I can't deny anymore. Once I moved into my own apartment, without roommates, I got back into drawing more regularly. It's not that I wasn't drawing once I finished college, I just found it difficult to finish things. I studied animation, and I'd start things for my portfolio, or I'd start these large drawings and would leave them halfway done. I'm not sure if it's necessarily living on my own, or just becoming frustrated with my inability to complete anything that made me start making these. Looking back on older stuff I did, it kind of seems like I was always going to do this. Like I used to make figurative drawings in high school, but I'd fill the page with some kind of texture. They'd either be in front a black background or textured wallpaper, or something along those lines. I made them with Bic ballpoint pens. I was heavily influenced by Diversion Mary/Eric Thomas Bostrom. I think I might have even found his work in middle school, but high school is when I really became more obsessed with drawing. What he does with ballpoint pens is far more interesting than anything I did, though. The mark making he does is so fine, it comes off as like paint or graphite. James Jean makes amazing ballpoint drawings as well, but I was only aware of his paintings in high school. I'm not going to Google it, I'm just going to keep rambling, but I'm pretty sure James Jean used 0.38 ballpoint pens. I don't think I was able to find what he used, but Montpeluche pens are also 0.38, and I've bought some before. They are amazing. If you're into drawing with ballpoint pens, I think they're worth getting if you're able to. But whatever you can find at the store is good too. You just have to be careful not to let whatever drawings you make with them get in the sun, because they'll fade very badly. I kept all my high school drawings in a box, and they've held up really well, no bleeding or weird colouring. They look the way they did like 15 plus years ago. H.R. Geiger was also a big influence. My mum let me watch Alien when I was like 9, and I became obsessed with drawing spaceships that were influenced by the one on LV-426. But my spaceships were just these geometrical shapes that I added different layers of cross-hatching to. I want to say I made those for a while. I thought it was fun. Stuff like that gives me funny ideas about time. It seems like the way we experience time, like in a linear fashion, isn't the only way to experience it. I wonder if certain ways of drawing made me more excited than other ways, because I was always meant to keep going down that rabbit hole instead of the other one. Like I'm more immediately drawn to certain ways of working because overall I have been, and/or I will be doing it for a while. By that I just mean, maybe I was always meant to do what I'm doing now, if that even makes sense. I never really enter a flow state with these, like it doesn't feel as though I'm getting ideas from something that's outside of myself. When I do feel like I'm on the right path and have a good idea, it feels more like it came from somewhere further down the line. Like it's still from me, just from a future me. It's like I did this amount of work, so now I'm able to unlock something from the next level. Hopefully that doesn't sound too crazy. I think I don't enter a flow state because I'm doing this alone, and I don't get immediate feedback from it. Like I've never presented these anywhere for a critique, and I've also never seen anyone else experience them in public. Also, the way I start these wouldn't allow for much of that anyway. It takes me about a few minutes to lay down a sketch of what I'm going to be working from, and then the rest of it is just following the sketch. So there's not a lot of creativity going on, it's more just filling out the rest of the page. Although I've never heard anyone else have similar experiences, so I'm open to the idea that I'm just crazy. Which is fine. I think I'm making it work for me. I'm not really sure what I want to get out of using YouTube. I like having a place to document what I'm working on, though. I sometimes feel like I'm not drawing enough, but I know that's a bit ridiculous. Producing even more content from it like this kind of helps. It's not that I don't take breaks, it's just that I feel like I could and should do more. But there really is no reason to. The amount I do now is perfectly fine. I guess my desire to do more comes from just wanting to go further with this work. I don't feel like this is the peak of it, just the beginning. I've been working on making larger drawings, and that has been an interesting challenge. The main issue with that is maintaining my interest. I don't know if it will come up in these clips, but the large spiral drawing that looks like a hurricane might get trashed. I'm not quite at the point of giving up, but I'm thinking about it. I don't think it looks as good as it could, and working on it won't make it better. But I also might just be frustrated with it because it is large, and I'm only about halfway through with it. With regards to materials, I mostly use Muji gel pens and moleskin paper. For the black drawings, I'll use the 0.38 for the details and the 0.5 for the background. Other colors depends on what I have. Reds are 0.38, and I think the rest are 0.5. You can get them on Amazon, but it is quicker to get them off the Muji USA website. But any gel pen is a good gel pen. I just like the way these look and feel on the paper that I'm using. All the small square and rectangular sheets are torn out of moleskin sketch albums and pads. If the paper has a rounded corner, it's moleskin, and if it doesn't, it's probably Strathmore Bristol paper. I prefer smooth papers because the pens drag less. Sometimes that can feel like a hindrance, especially when you're working on something that's going to take a while. I wouldn't necessarily recommend these, they just work for me. I don't know if either of them are the best brand to use, or if they'll hold up that well over time. But I do like the way they look together. The moleskin is ever so slightly an off-white colour, and the black Muji pen ink looks great on it. Combined, they give sort of a vintage look that I like. I use Posca markers for the larger ones, and I get those off of Jet Pens. I love Jet Pens, it's so hard not to try new products from there. They also have these neat sample packs of pens. So if you want to get into using brush pens, you could try out this or that pack. I don't know, I just think that's neat. Their variety of pens is just massive too. I've spent several hours just looking at what all they have. I don't want to say I've settled on Muji gel pens, but I kind of have because they're the only kind of pens with nibs this small that don't have like a thin tubular shape to them. I know Micron pens aren't gel pens, but there are a few gel pens that have that same kind of nib, and I've bent every single one I've used. It's for sure the way I hold my pen because I'm very careful not to add more pressure than necessary, so I don't think it could be that. I know I hold it incorrectly, but I feel like I have more control doing it this way. With the correct way, it's easier for your hand to cramp up doing repetitive stuff like that. Also, I wasn't homeschooled or anything, I was just really stubborn. I'm not sure how I came to the conclusion that this was the best way to hold a pencil, but I did. I'm sorry if this is unbearable to listen to. I tried to keep this stream of consciousness going so it wouldn't sound so dull, and I tried to hit some talking points that I thought would be good, because I'm not sure if I'll do this again. If enough of you like it, I would for sure, but otherwise I think it would have to get to the point where I wanted to explain more about my process or something. It's just that there's not a lot to explain, so that is very unlikely. I would love it if these drawing videos were inspiring in some kind of way, though. I love drawing and I want other people to love it too. I want to infect as many people as I can with the drawing bug. And even if it isn't inspiring, hopefully, it shows you what simple designs can do. It doesn't take a lot of skill to recreate these, it just takes a lot of time and patience. I know trust the process is a cliché, but it can work out. Plus, the more you draw, the better you'll get. I feel like doing more simple drawing exercises is a good way to build confidence. Whenever I do gestural drawings, it takes a few to finally pick back up where I was at. I don't know why drawing is something that you constantly have to work on to maintain the level you're at, but that does seem to be the case. Admittedly, it can be discouraging starting something new though, but with the way social media is, you do have the potential to gain something more out of it. At the very least, you're bound to get nice feedback once you start sharing. Not that I have a huge following or anything, but when you think about even just 50 followers is a lot of people. And even if it's only 50 people that you personally know, that still means they like you enough to look at what you're doing. I enjoy drawing a lot, and if you think it's something you'd enjoy, or if you used to enjoy it, you should definitely do it. Even if you're concerned about wasting your time, it's never a complete waste because you get a nice drawing out of it. And that goes for any creative pursuit. I feel like working on something that you enjoy doing is always worthwhile regardless of the outcome. Even if you don't get what you want out of it, you're still teaching yourself new things, and that's never bad. Okay, well, hopefully you're asleep by now or almost there. Don't worry, tomorrow's going to be great. You're going to do so well, and you'll wake up refreshed and ready to go. You got this. Okay, take care now. Have a good night.